Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. It's time for the second roster breakdown for the 2023 season. Today we are talking about the number 2 seed from last year, the San Francisco Shock. They finished number 2 in the regular season, they finished second in the playoffs, losing 4-3 to the Dallas Fuel in the grand finals. Very, very good run for this team last season, of course, off of the back of Roll Star and Rookie of the Year and MVP Proper, who was absolutely phenomenal last season. This season, they go in with a very, very, very new look for this roster. Throw it up here. You can see it. Finn and Proper, the only two players returning to this team from last season. And then they have Hisang, Max, Vindine coming over from the Seoul Dynasty, and Junbin. So some rookies, some veterans, but no one who's been in the league for more than a year on this team. So still a very young team with a lot of really, really, really big name players and some crazy amounts of potential. So let's jump in and talk about this roster, starting with the tank line. 2 tanks for this roster, Max and Junbin, both rookie players coming into this team from O2 Blast. They played together with O2 Blast. Junbin, of course, 17 years old, so he wouldn't have been eligible for the season until that rule change that made it so 17-year-old players are eligible. So now they reunite this O2 Blast tank line. Max, mostly an off-tank player, so stuff like Sigma, Zarya, Diva. Junbin, more of a main tank player, so the Winston, the Orisa, the Wrecking Ball, the Reinhardt, stuff like that. So very well-rounded tank line. I love that this team went with double tank. I think double tank is very, very, very important to success in the Overwatch League. I know we talk about it. I talked about this last week with the Dallas Fuel. I'll talk about it again today, and I'll probably bring it up several times in videos. I think 2 tank is right now what you need to do. We've seen enough of it, in my opinion, from last season to see that single tank is just not a viable option unless you can find the most flexible tank, right? Smurf was the exception last year. All of the best teams in the league last year had 2 tank players. The Dallas Fuel would not have won that grand finals if they did not have Fearless on the roster. If they only had Hanbin, they were not going to win that grand finals. I think it's very important to have 2 tanks. The Shock recognized that. It was one of the mistakes they had early in the year last year, only having Kaluj. As good as he just wasn't a super well-rounded player. He said on Plat Chat recently he just does not want to learn how to play Wrecking Ball. That is just not something he feels like doing. So they brought in Mikey, who does know how to play Wrecking Ball and was a Wrecking Ball player, and he really helped this team to have a very, very good run kind of late in the season. This season they go with Max and they go with Junbin, 2 very, very, very good tank players. Max, a lot of people have him as the highest rated rookie coming into 2023. It was Proper last year. A lot of people think it's going to be Max this year. Pair him with Junbin, 2 players who know how to play with each other. They kind of know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They've done this kind of game before. They know who's best at what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are. I think it's a phenomenal tank line. Rookie tank line is a little concerning, but I think these are 2 players who we've seen perform at such a high level in contenders, on the best team in contenders over the past several years. You look at his Wikipedia page, you go back, it is first. Lots of wins in Korean contenders going back to the beginning of the 2021 season of contenders. Ever since he joined O2 Blast, it is win after win after win for Max and for Junbin. So I love this tank line. I think it's phenomenal. I think they're going to have a very good rotation. I think they're going to know what each other's strengths are. I don't really have a lot of concern there with that roster. Absolutely no need to do anything else with that tank line. That is a perfect tank line. Very, very, very little you need to do to adjust that tank line in any capacity. So a lot of confidence there. I want to talk about the support line next because, once again, this is a support line that I really have a ton of confidence in. Finn returns from last season. I thought he was a very good player for this roster. Taking over the flex support role from Violet, which is a very, very, very big deal. Violet was on this team for years. He was there for both of their championships. He was one of the only pieces, or I guess the only piece returning to this roster last season until Stryker joined late in the season. And I thought he was a phenomenal player. So him being the flex support, he doesn't have the same issues in the sense of his hero pool that Violet had. Violet was never a great Ana. Guess what? Finn can play Ana, he can play Zen, he can play Kiriko. He gives you what you need. Pair him with Vindime, who, in my opinion, should have been a role star last year. He was phenomenal for this team, or for the Seoul Dynasty last year. He was very, 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 very good. He was a big part of why they were successful in the season last year. One of my favorite players from a year ago. Loved watching him. He is a player with history on O2 Blast. He was on the team until he joined the Seoul Dynasty. So he's played with Finn before. This is a backline, once again, that has been together. They know what they're doing. And while a lot of teams opt to go with 2 flex supports on their roster, sometimes that means having a main support and 2 flex supports. Sometimes that's 2 flex supports, one of whom flexes over to Lucio. Vindime is the opposite. He is a main support player with a very good Lucio, very good Brig, but also we saw him play Zenyatta last year on the Seoul Dynasty, and I thought he was really, really good on the hero. So in double flex support metas, I have tons of faith that Vindime can pick up the Zen if they need him on that. I don't think it's going to be super common that happens, but if they do, I don't have a lot of concern for him because we've seen him play it at a high level, and I know that he's going to bring his best when it comes to Lucio, when it comes to Brig, when it comes to Mercy. So this support line, one of the best in the league. This is a major upgrade in my opinion. As good as Violet is as a player, and I do think he was the best Lucio last year out of the players who made the transition from flex support to main support. I thought Violet was the best of them last year. Vindime, to me, was one of the 4 best supports in the entire league last year. And I think he should have gotten the role star, but didn't. To me, he is absolutely an upgrade in the support line. To me, Vindime and Finn, up there as one of the best support duos in the league. Up there with the likes of what you have up in Boston with Izayaki and Lee Jae-gon and Twilight. I guess that one's more of a trio, but you get the point. What you have in Atlanta with Vigilante Chio Fielder. That's another really, really good support line. This is up there with that level of support line. That is how good this support line is. I have a ton of faith in the support line. I think they are phenomenal. I don't really see a hole in their support line. So that's another thing about this roster. They were second last year, and you can tell they are hungry for a win this year in San Francisco. They're the winningest organization in terms of grand finals wins. They've won 2 already. They've been in a third. They are the dynasty in the Overwatch League, and they are one of the best teams that we have ever seen compete in Overwatch. So that brings us to, of course, their DPS line, led by last year's MVP and Rookie of the Year and Role Star, Proper. I think Proper is still going to be one of the best players in the league this year. I don't see how he's not. I think the team around him is better than it was last year. So I think there's a very real possibility that Proper is asked to do less for this team, which I think is only good for him. I don't think that means we're going to see less of him. I just think it means that he's not going to have to carry the team as much as he did last year, which I think is a really good thing for Proper. We all know Proper can play whatever he wants. He can play literally everything in the DPS lineup. It's kind of absurd. And you pair him with Hee-Sang, who is another very, very good player. Played back with Element Mystic for a while, played for Talon Esports at one point in time, and then, of course, played with O2 Blast last year. He is one of the only DPS players, when you go back to the 2021 season in Contenders. Proper was the best DPS player in the world. Everybody knew he was the best player in Contenders. There was no question about it. No one could match up to him on the DPS lineup, except for Hee-Sang. Hee-Sang was the other guy who everyone knew was very, very good. He's not as flexible as Proper, but if you put Hee-Sang on his best roles, his Tracer, his Genji, his Echo, heroes like that, he is a phenomenal player. My main concern with Hee-Sang is I don't know what his hit scan level is. We know Proper can play hit scan at a very high level. We saw him do very well on Sojourn and on Widow last year. So I'm not concerned there. I'm not as familiar with Hee-Sang on the hit scan role, and I know he is not a hit scan specialist. I know that's not his comfort role. And so when I look at this team, the only place where I think this team could potentially have an issue is in their DPS line. Proper and Hee-Sang are phenomenal players. I don't doubt that. I would like to see them add another pure sniper hit scan player. Same thing I said about Dallas which is in most metas, I think that this team will be perfectly fine. In most metas, Proper and Heesang are going to dunk on people. But if they need a hard sniper meta, where they need, like a Widow or an Ashe, and they also need something like Sojourn, can Heesang play that Sojourn? Can he flex to that Sojourn, or can he flex to that Widow and allow Proper to be the Sojourn? Or do they need to bring someone in to fill for those moments? Last year, they had Kilo, who I thought was pretty good. I think they wanted to keep him this season. Kilo made the decision to try to kind of see if he could find an opportunity somewhere else. So there's always the possibility that this team brings in somebody like Kilo again. There's always a possibility that they bring that in. I think that this team is the best team in the world at bringing players in when they need them. Kind of as a mid-season signing. They've always been very, very good at it. So there's always a possibility Kilo comes back. Ans is still out there in free agency. He could always come back. There's tons of talent in the league, or who has been in the league, that isn't in the league right now, that they could bring in for another hit scan player. I don't think it's a make or break thing for this roster. I think they will be fine even if they just have Proper and Heesang all season. They have enough talent that I think they will be more than okay this season. But it is the one place that I have some hesitation. But even then, it's not much. And you could bring in a player like Probe with O2 Blast. He's a hard sniper player. If it becomes too much of a problem, that's an option you have there. There's tons of talent out there that you could potentially bring in. That's just one name that I kind of think of potentially. There's also Prophet, not Soul Dynasty Prophet with an FI. There's Prophet with a PHE, who played for O2 Blast, who's also a sniper player, who is a free agent right now. So there are options for this team if they do need to bring in another sniper player, someone to play the hard hit scan role. But like I said, I don't think they need it. It is the only place on this roster that I think they could maybe bring in someone just to kind of solidify this team. This is a team to me that should be competing for championships, that will be competing for a championship this year. And so to me, you want to get rid of as many doubts and redundancies, or not redundancies, as many doubts as possible, right? They have everything covered basically as much as you can, except for maybe stellar double hit scan play, which may or not be meta. We don't really know. You can't really predict that, but that is why I think you do need to kind of prepare for that. In the event that there's a really hard hit scan meta in the playoffs, maybe they don't perform as well as they would do with this kind of lineup. But like I said, this is picking at straws, right? Proper and Heesang should be top 2 DPS duo in the league, top 3 at the worst. They are going to be one of the best in the league. I don't have any doubts about the two of them as players. And I think that this team is easily one of the best looking teams going into 2023. It's hard to say if they are the best team. It's hard to say if they should be a favorite at the moment because we don't know all the rosters yet. We don't know what the metas are going to be and anything like that. We still have time until the season begins. We might even get a new hero by the time the next season begins. I think we won't for the Pro-Am, but I think when the season kicks off, there will be a new support hero. And who knows how that's going to shape the meta. So it's hard to say for sure right now that this is definitively the best team in the league. But they certainly look to be among the best teams in the league. And that is a scary prospect when you consider the fact that this team was second overall a year ago, and I think looks better now than it was. And they were a map away from winning the grand finals last year. So I like where this team is at. I think it's a very, very good team. I think we are looking at one of the favorites. I think a lot of people are going to be picking the San Francisco Shock to win this season. A lot of number one placements and a lot of power rankings out there. That is the level of team that we have here. I don't even know if I, talking about this team, am doing how good this team is justice. O2 Blast was incredible last year. The San Francisco Shock were incredible last year. Don't let the fact that the Shock didn't win any titles last year detract from the fact that they were definitively the second best team in the league. They were that good. So I look at this team, I look at what we've got here, and I think that we are in for a very, very, very good season from the Shock in 2023. And like I said, I think we are looking at one of the favorites to win it all in this upcoming season. But that's it for me for today. Those are my thoughts on this team. Let me know your thoughts on the team in the comments down below. How much do you think this team is going to dominate this year if you do? Or do you think people are overrating them and they're not going to be what we think? Any thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. I got 3 of these roster breakdowns coming out every week. Wednesday, we'll be breaking down the Los Angeles Gladiators roster, so stay tuned for that. But that is going to be all from me for today. Thank you all once again. Hope you are all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.